Distinguished members of the media, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. We welcome to the press briefing of the Bangladesh delegation at COP29. It is my privilege to introduce the esteemed members of the panel. Syeda Rizwana Hassan, Honorable Advisor of the Ministry of the Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the Ministry of Water Resources, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Dr. Farhina Ahmed, at the middle left, the Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Ms. Farjana Mumtaz, Secretary, Power Division, Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Also present in the stage, Dr. Abdul Hamid, Director General, Department of Environment, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of Bangladesh. Mr. Riaz Hamidullah, Additional Foreign Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of the Bangladesh, at the right side. And Akem Suhail, Additional Secretary, Economic Relations Division, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. At the beginning of the session, the Honorable Advisor, Syeda Rizwana Hassan, will deliver her statement. Following her statements or remarks, the members of the media are invited to ask their questions to the Bangladesh delegation. I now invite Syeda Rizwana Hassan, Honorable Advisor of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and the Ministry of Water Resources of Bangladesh government to deliver her statement.
Thank you very much. Dear representatives of national and international media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. I welcome you all to the Bangladesh delegation press briefing. Bangladesh expresses its sincere thanks and appreciation to the government and the people of Azerbaijan for their warm hospitality and to the COP29 presidency for their hard work and dedication in organizing this UN climate change conference. As one of the most vulnerable countries due to climate change, Bangladesh has been demonstrating an unwavering commitment to climate action since adaptation of the UN Climate Change Convention and has played active role during COP29 negotiation. Dear friends, the messages of the latest scientific reports of IPCC, UNEP Adaptation Gap Report 2024 and Emissions Gap Report are clear. If emissions are not rapidly reduced and adaptation adequately funded, this will expose the most vulnerable countries like Bangladesh to unmanageable levels of risk. As we speak here today, at least 300 villages and 1.5 million people in Bangladesh remain inundated in one of our coastal districts. This year alone, the country experienced 2 devastating floods of unprecedented scale that impacted 1.7% of our total budget. Moreover, 26 million people are exposed to very high salinity and water scarcity in the southern coastal regions in Bangladesh and are exposed to sea level rise. Regrettably, the global north and the major emitting countries still lack the feeling of urgency and true commitment in implementing the Paris Agreement. Existing plans and policies to mitigate climate change remain far from what is needed to limit global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. We are in a critical decade which determines our course whether to keep us well below 1.5 or to put us in a dangerous world towards 2.1 to 2.8 degree pathway, even if we implement all the current nationally determined contribution targets. Friends, according to the Adaptation Gap Report of 2023, Bangladesh alone needs approximately 8.5 billion USD per year to adapt to the devastating impacts of climate change. Yet, only around 3 billion USD is currently being allocated through domestic sources. This leaves a massive shortfall of 5.5 billion USD, a gap that must be filled through external grant-based finance. On a global scale, the total adaptation finance gap is 366 billion USD per year, as determined by needs assessment. This figure is deeply concerning and cannot be ignored. If we are to meet our adaptation needs, we must close the gap now, before the cost of inaction becomes unbearable. In this backdrop, let me now focus on the ongoing negotiation at this COP29. We note with concern that there is slow progress on climate finance agenda items, particularly on loss and damage fund and new collective quantified goal outcome. Under the NCQG negotiation, we are emphasizing on adequate and quality financing of USD 1.3 trillion for adaptation mitigation. We also propose grant-based financing for adaptation and loss and damage, as well as highly concessional financing for mitigation. We have been demanding special allocation for LDCs and SEEDs, considering their special needs and circumstances. Public source of financing should be the primary source for NCQG, while private sector might have a supportive role. At least 25% of that finance should flow through UNFCCC and Paris Agreement's funding windows. Standing Committee on Finance should develop a climate finance definition to ensure transparency and accountability of climate finance. Dear friends, unfortunately, we could not reach agreement on the review of the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. While work continues at the board level to determine how the new fund for responding to loss and damage will operate, we call for further pledges and its true operationalization. On global goal on adaptation, parties failed to resolve differences, and subsidiary bodies forwarded the draft text to the CMA, who considered the draft text as work in progress. We hope parties will engage during next SBs before adopting a decision at CMA 7 next year. It is disappointing to see the slow progress on the mitigation work program, the only agenda on mitigation. The issue of linking the first GST outcome to mitigation work program has been the main stumbling block. The first GST outcome should facilitate the work on mitigation work program and ensure that countries' updated new NDCs deliver strengthened commitments informed by the GST, tripling renewable energy capacity and doubling energy efficiency by 2030, thereby transitioning towards sustainable energies. As for Bangladesh, we can transition to a renewable pathway with a higher ambition and fulfill the conditional commitment of our NDC if means of implementation are delivered. We certainly consider the importance of Article 6. However, developed countries must take the lead in mitigation action and focus on their respective domestic mitigation actions rather than shifting the burden to developing countries through Article 6 mechanism where transparency remains a major issue. Finally, if trust in the multinational process is to be upheld, the Baku COP must succeed with a just and balanced outcome, particularly by delivering a concrete and rightful decision on NCQG. I thank you all.
Thank you, Her Excellency. Now we will proceed to the question-answer session that we offered the question answers. So I can see that mic can go there. Microphone, please.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tarushi, and I'm with the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union. My question is about the polythene usage. Recently, the ministry, to be specific in October, made the decision to ban polythene bags in superstores, which we applaud. But as far as we know, both the shopkeepers and customers are still using polystyrene in full swing. Polystyrene is basically which is mostly used in foam packaging and egg cartons, right? In this context, how the ministry's steps can be successful?
Thank you very much. Although it's about national priority that the ministry has set in the national level. It also has linked to the climate change debate because we know that polythene is dependent on a fossil fuel-based economy. Our ban is being implemented in phases. We have not imposed any new ban. The ban was imposed in 2002, and Bangladesh was one of the first countries to have imposed the ban. There was implementation up to 2006, but after that, the implementation got a bit, enforcement got a bit relaxed. So we have restarted the process, and we are doing it phase by phase because in last 22 years, people's habit also have changed. So we have started with the supermarket, and I can tell you with all my confidence that all the super shops in the capital have stopped using polythene shopping bags by 80%. Some have pleaded for some more time because of the supply of alternatives which I don't necessarily buy, but instead of enforcing the ban with punitive measures, we are going a little slow by encouraging people to change their behavior. But we have also started drive against the producing entities. It is not unexpected that we will be faced with some resistance, but there is total determination in the government that the government will fully enforce the ban. But I have to tell you that you have to allow us some time because people are heavily dependent on polythene shopping bag.
Thank you. Then next, the microphone will go there. Right.
Thank you. Zach Coleman with Politico. On the mitigation work program, what specific language do you need to see to be comfortable with it? Because there is some conversation about just recalling the Dubai Consensus, but do you need to see specific language around fossil fuels that was in the consensus to be represented in the mitigation work program as well?
I think what Bangladesh, as one of the most vulnerable countries, would like to see is set targets and the targets to be prescriptive. But we understand that we are negotiating in a global community, and bringing all 195, 196 countries to agreement will take time. We would really like to see a transition from a fossil fuel-driven global economy to a renewable and sustainable model of global economy, and we know that it will require time. But what we don't want to miss is the targets that were mentioned in the Dubai deal, and we very much look forward to the roadmap that will be presented in the next COP in Brazil. In between, we just did not want to lose the link between the mitigation work plan and the GST.
So thank you, Her Excellency. The next question is there. So many hands, so we are going one after one. Okay.
Joydeep Gupta from the Earth Journalism Network. So you have repeated the 1.3 trillion figure that G77 said. We haven't had a figure yet officially from Annex 1 countries. The negotiations are on. What's your red line? What's your red line? At which point will you stop negotiating?
See, as there is no last word in politics, there is also no last word in negotiation. But I would emphasize that the LDC countries and the G77 and China alliance would emphasize equally on quality, that we don't really want the climate debt to increase in our part of the world. The fund that we get for adaptation should come from public sources, should be channeled through the UN mechanism. There should be transparency and accountability. There should be no double counting, and so on. So we just don't want the climate debt to increase, and we consider that countries should act on the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. And on adaptation, it should be grant-based and it should be public finance.
So next questions. Microphone there.
Hello, Josh Gawitis from Carbon Brief. You mentioned the need for a definition of climate finance. First of all, how would you define climate finance in this context? And have you seen any appetite from developed countries in particular to bring in a specific definition of climate finance? Thank you.
We want a definition on climate finance because we wanted to avoid loans, ODAs, to be termed as climate finance. So the way we want to define it is by negating certain funds that are often tagged as climate finance. So we want to make sure that some assistance that is coming our way on the basis of market rate interest on issues that are hardly related to climate justice should not be tagged as climate finance. Till date, there is little appetite in the developed countries to invest more time and energy in defining climate finance.
Next question is there at the front line.
My name is Umar Manzoor Shah from Interpress Service. So my question is that, as you say that it's a slow COP and the situation here is that it's running at the very snail's pace. So you're not getting the desired results. But Pakistan at the same time has pitched for climate diplomacy. It has stated that all the vulnerable countries, especially in South Asia, should come together, make a conglomerate and an amalgam so that it could pitch as a unified voice for loss and mitigation and damage. Yeah, what do you have to say about it?
I don't think I really got your answer question very straightforward, but I must say here, when I was reading the statement, I mentioned that we need an amount of around 8.5 billion USD, and 3.5 billion is being domestically mobilized. So there is ample scope for the South Asian countries to come together as a region, both in adaptation and mitigation. There may be innovation in the agricultural field somewhere in South Asia from where all other countries can benefit. We can think of the energy supply sector in South Asia, where through regional cooperation, we can rely more on hydro that is being produced in Nepal and Bhutan. And we can come up with a regional cooperation framework through which we can think of having a regional grid that will be managed by more than one country in the region, and through which we can bring hydro from Nepal and Bhutan to countries like ours. So of course there is ample scope for collaboration and cooperation, even on the issue of Himalayan Hindu Kush region. We all are concerned about what is happening there in the Himalayas in terms of glacier melt. If that happens, that's not going to impact only Nepal, that's going to impact the water supply in the rivers of Bangladesh. That's going to intensify the sea level rise in Bangladesh. So there is ample scope for the region to come together, and while the international negotiation is taking decades to be concluded, is taking decades to deliver, the regions, I think, will have the imperatives, will have the necessary reasons to move forward faster.
Thank you. We have, the time is running fast, so we can take a few more questions, maybe 3 only. So here, one hand that, okay, I'm coming.
Thank you for giving me floor to talk about and to ask our advisor, honorable advisor. This is me, Ahmed Reza, and I work for a television based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. My question is to you that as a journalist, I am frustrated and I have talked with the journalist community, they are frustrated. So far I know the delegation team and the negotiator, they are also frustrated about this COP. They are frustrated about the negotiation table. They are frustrated about the financing issues. So we all are frustrated. So do you see any kind of optimism regarding this COP? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. As I said in my 3 concluding lines, that if we have, there is ample reason for us to keep our trust in a multilateral process like this. If climate crisis happens the way it's being predicted, it's not only the most vulnerable countries that will be impacted, other countries will also be impacted. We can't forget what has just happened in Spain. So multilateral process is proving to be slow, not as effective as we would like it to be, but we have to keep our confidence in it and we have to engage, because this is a process that not only connects the governments, it also connects the people of the world, and that is where the hope lies.
The next questions here. Okay, please.
Thank you, Madam Advisor, to allow me a question. Actually, Bangladesh agree wanting the tripling our renewable energy by 2030, as well as the energy efficiency doubling in the same time. We take a lot of initiative already, but how do you evaluate if we not get the enough financial support? Can Bangladesh make this commitment alone?
That also has been mentioned in the statement that I just read out, that for us to be really ambitious in the area of energy transition, we will need financial support. So in the NDC part, we have got an unconditional commitment, which we'll be able to fulfill. In the conditional part, we will need financial support. And it is the NDCs of all the countries together that will define the pathway. And there we will need financial support, we will need technical and technological assistance. Without that support, we will not be able to deliver.
So I have one hand only. This is the last question. Okay.
This is Borhanul Ashekin, Dhaka-based news channel, Channel 24. I have a question to Mr. Sodha Rizwana Hassan. Till now, there has no hope of climate finance. Developed nations also not interested to pay money to the LDCs. There has also a debate about whether it will be loan or grant. You have mentioned earlier it will be grant. You also want support, financial support on this ground. If you not get, or Bangladesh not get any financial support, how Bangladesh will tackle the climate crisis? Has Bangladesh any confidence to tackle this crisis? Thank you.
It is not that the developed countries are not committing anything. They are committing, but there is gap between the expectation and the commitment. And we are trying to minimize the gap. As state negotiators, we, in our individual capacity representing our country and also in the negotiation blocks to which we belong, so from both sides we are trying to minimize the gap. You can't give up hope. If the gap widens, it will be hope against hope. But giving up hope makes no sense. And that's why I said we have to remain engaged in this process and make sure that the voices of our people, the voices of the climate-affected people of Bangladesh, are adequately echoed here and echoed in a way that it has an impact on the entire negotiation process. What was the last part of your question? Does Bangladesh have the capacity? Bangladesh certainly lacks capacity. After every disaster, we get support from our friends in the global arena. So our international development partners, states, other states come forward to help us, but we want that assistance to be more systematic and to be against the defined need. Otherwise, it will get very difficult for any LDC country to deal with the scale of disasters alone with its own resources.
So thank you all. Thank you, Her Excellency. Thank you, the panel of Bangladesh delegation. So we have running the time. The time is going to over. So thank you all for the participation and for the presence. Thank you. Thank you very much.